Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, and we're going to talk about how Disney is going to completely and utterly destroy the X-Men in the MCU. The word is out now. Apparently, the first X-Men movie in the MCU is going to be called The Mutants. The Mutants. We're going to get rid of the X-Men name because it's problematic. We're going to talk about this. This has been rumored for a couple of years now. That Disney does not like, or at least producers over at Marvel do not like the X-Men name because it's sexist. And we're going to talk about some of the other potential changes to the X-Men. I am not excited for the X-Men to come to the MCU at all. This has nothing to do with the X-Men movie. This is actually John Byrne's fanfic. Classic X-Men artist, classic comic book creator, John Byrne, legendary comic book creator John Byrne, has put out X-Men Elsewhen unofficially. You can find it on his message board. You can find it on, this is on readcomiconline.li. And there's like 30 issues of basically bootleg X-Men that is infinitely better than the X-Men comics that Marvel's putting out right now. Like, this is what people want. They want classic X-Men. They want Sentinels. They want Magneto being a bad guy. They want the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They don't want the Hellfire Gala. We're going to talk about that. But when people think of the X-Men, they want the classic team from the 80s or even the Jim Lee era in the early 90s. You know, it's money in the bank. If Disney would just give people classic X-Men, bring that to the big screen, mostly intact, even if it was just a live action version of the animated series from the 90s, it would be money in the bank. But we know they're not going to do that. We know they're not going to do that because Disney, when it comes to Marvel, is dumb. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 272,000 subs. We'd like to make it 273. So if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be fantastic. Movie Web put it up. Lots of people talked about it yesterday. San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, and they believe that the X-Men will be called the Mutants. The Mutants, and not the X-Men. Now, this could be a precursor to the X-Men, but if you go back a couple of years, one of Marvel's producers, Victoria Alonso, the EVP at Marvel, has basically said that X-Men is a sexist name because there are lots of X-women too. The X-women and the X-children. What about them? Yeah, we're not going to call it the X-Men. We're going to call it the Mutants, or maybe the X-Squad, or X-Team, or Team X, or something. X is probably problematic too, because we can't have too many X's, because if you turn an X, sideways, it might make people think of Yahtzees or something. I don't know. They're going to find some reason for it to be problematic, I'm sure. But they're already kind of leading up to a very, very different X-Men. Kamala Khan, of course, in the Disney Plus series is a mutant and not an Inhuman. Now, people that worked on the comic book are coming out and saying that they wanted her to be a mutant in the comics, but I think they're going to use her like Kitty Pryde or Jubilee in the animated series, and they're going to have her be the introduction to the mutants. Again, this is not what comic book fans want. I don't know how this is going to go with normies who are used to the movie versions of the X-Men. And look, it's been all over the place. There were a couple of good X-Men movies. Most of them were forgettable or just outright trash, but at least they attempted to somewhat resemble the comics. And I don't think these movies are going to resemble the comics, and everybody's getting all excited. I think what we're going to get in live action is bullshit like this. The Hellfire Gala, Krakoa, because they're even going back. They're doing an X-Men 90s comic book series, and they're basically taking the Krakoa storyline and they're bringing it into 90s X-Men comics. They will not let this thing die on the vine. No pun intended. They're going to glam it up. This is probably what we're going to get. I think it's going to be a bunch of bullshit. that I don't think is going to do that well. You can't mess with the formula. And I think the Professor X with the X-Men, 90s X-Men theme song, the cameo in Doctor Strange, was about as close as we're probably going to get to the X-Men of the comics. So anyway, this was last year even. MovieWeb said that X-Men isn't going to be the title of the MCU's first mutant movie. And, you know, they did the New Mutants. Fox did the New Mutants, and it failed spectacularly. You think they'd want to stay away from the Mutants name, because people would be like, didn't that movie come out like 2 or 3 years ago? And wasn't it dog shit? Yeah. Anyway, this is coming from MovieWeb again. Having the official titles of both of the upcoming Blade and X-Men reboots, have they been revealed? Thanks to a report by Deadline regarding the slate of the San Diego Comic-Con 2022, it seems to be that Marvel's Blade will be titled The Blade, while MCU's take on the X-Men will go by The Mutants. This is not the first time that The Mutants has been touted as an official title, for when the likes of Professor X, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey enter the fray, and Ms. Marvel and a bunch of random new X-Men from the newer comics, I'm sure. This title was rumored last year. While the idea of an X-Men movie not being called X-Men seems a little strange, it does track with how the MCU has been slowly introducing the existence of mutants, most recently in, spoiler alert, Ms. Marvel. As for Blade, the title The Blade is jarring. It's like, is it going to be the gay Blade? Oh my God. They would go there. Would they go there? Yeah, they'd totally go there. As the character is usually referred to as Blade and has never really held such prestige that he requires the before the name. I don't give a shit about the Blade movie. Wesley Snipes did it. It was awesome. The first two were awesome. And we don't need to do it again. We don't need to do it again. They could have brought Wesley Snipes to the MCU and they didn't do it. The Blade. Originally it was going to be Blade the Vampire Slayer, which sounds a lot like Buffy, but whatever. Blade and the X-Men will soon be introduced into the MCU. They're already doing it with Ms. Marvel. It's hugely exciting. It's hugely exciting for the X-Men to come to the MCU. I don't think it is. I think it's headed for a disaster of magnanimous proportions. And I can tell you, given the way that the MCU is going, I mean, basically they've forgotten anything that happened more than 5 years ago in the comics. It seems like they just keep pulling from the newer comics, the comics that are not selling nearly as well as the classic comics. Again, if they were smart, they would go back to 80s, 90s X-Men. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be this shit. I think it's going to be lots of this shit, but with Ms. Marvel thrown in for good measure, right? And the dear girl, whatever the hell her name is, the environmentalist, and that's the kind of shit we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get, we were never going to get a one-to-one X-Men comic adaptation. That was never going to happen. But I think they're going to treat the X-Men like the Inhumans, basically. And I think it's going to be dog shit. That's my personal opinion. In the meantime, go out and find John Byrne's X-Men Elsewhen online. I did not realize he had this many issues up. I thought he did a couple issues and that was it. Apparently Marvel wanted to publish it and he said, nah, I'm good. So he's been working on this for a couple of years on his own. And this is basically if he had continued the X-Men run, the classic X-Men run from back in the 80s. And we need more of this. I would love to see, the Marvel Comics universe, like have Jim Shooter come back and just like hit the reset button and be like, yeah, everything that happened after like 1980 whatever didn't actually happen. We're gonna go back and just continue the stories, as you remember them from the 80s and go from there. It's a multiverse, guys. It's a multiverse. We can do anything we want to do, but don't expect classic X-Men. When it finally comes to the MCU, it's very, very obvious this is not going to be the case. Even if the title is The Mutants, even if X-Men winds up being like the next movie or something like that, I think it's going to be based more on the newer X-Men movies and the fact that they're using Kamala Khan as a lead-in to The Mutants. doesn't bode very well. You know, it really doesn't. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.